If you didn't know or didn't care, Trials of Osiris underwent big changes in episode Heresy, and today we're here to answer the question, is Trials worth playing now? To which the answer is, at least in my opinion, yes. And before we continue, no, DMG is not hovering behind me with a high-powered loaded potato gun, nor are there any checks in the mail courtesy of John Bungie. I truly believe Trials is actually worth playing right now, as what used to be a teeth-grinding experience that would make me rage like I just stepped on the world's most triangle-shaped Lego is now essentially, for lack of a better phrase, a giant loot bukkake that actually respects your time as a player. If you didn't bother reading through that giant War and Peace-sized twid from not too long ago, or didn't catch the recap from your favorite Louisiana-twanged content creator who likely kicked the whole thing off with an enthusiastic, "Fellas, here's the TLDR and overall takeaways you should know." Major takeaway number one, going flawless and going to the lighthouse are now two completely different things. If you want to go to the lighthouse now, it's actually quite easy to the point where, theoretically, anyone can do it. Go to Saint 14 and pick up the Lighthouse Passage, which is one of only 3 passage options right now. Yes, Saint 14 only shows 2 when you first get there, but more on that later because he's actually lying directly to your face. Liar! With the Lighthouse Passage, you can go to the lighthouse as long as you eventually get 7 wins on your card. Even if you spend half your time in the playlist getting completely mollywopped by some 19-year-old TTVer collecting green dots to impress his never-met IRL Discord kitten, if you eventually get 7 wins without resetting your passage, boom, lighthouse for you. If you're wondering, yes, you can get adept weapons this way, so if you've ever shied away from trials like a pro Smash Bros player shying away from a shower, well, fear no more. You can roll right in, not worry about going 7-0, and still drown in good loot, including adept weapons. Also, yeah, you can do this as many times as you want. After going to the lighthouse, you can just reset your card and do the entire thing over again. Major takeaway number 2, win streaks matter. There's kind of 2 things to talk about here. The first is weekly win streaks. In short, you can get extra rewards depending on your highest weekly win streak that weekend. And before you think to yourself, well, I'm never really gonna go on a huge win streak, it's okay if you don't. If you end up at the lighthouse and only have a 1 win streak, which is the absolute minimum you can have, you're still gonna get enhancement cores, prisms, a shard, an adept mod, progress points towards getting a ghost shell, and the hardened by trial emblem. Remember though, this isn't the same thing as repeatable rewards. That is to say, if you went to the lighthouse many times in one weekend, you wouldn't be collecting this weekly 1 win streak prize every single time you went there. Think of it like a cross-off reward list, if that makes sense. But anyway, win streaks also matter in another way. When you've finished your lighthouse passage and gone to the lighthouse to receive your free loot explosion, as mentioned earlier, you can, if you want to, fully reset your lighthouse passage and do the same thing over again. Or you can choose to not reset your lighthouse passage. And as I'm sure you're justly wondering, why the hell would I do that? Well, because depending on what your longest weekly win streak is, you might not even really need to reset your passage at all. This is Bungie's handy-dandy Trials loot chart, and don't worry, in a minute I'll explain it so that even your hyper kid brother can understand. But before I do, today's video is sponsored by Exoborn, so let's thank them real quick. Yeah, that game that Walla Cross and I joined up and played together. Exoborn is a tactical open-world extraction shooter set in a world torn apart by extreme forces of nature, and I really do mean extreme. I'm talking ride a windstorm into a team wipe true combo kinda extreme. It's high risk, high reward extraction with the homies. What could be better? Don't answer that, I'll do it for you. Exo rigs. Exo rigs are full-body combat suits that you can unlock, upgrade, and use to murder your enemies in combat. Also, they just look good. And hey, you know the rule of modern day gaming. If it has a grapple hook that you can just use whenever you want for better movement, it's automatically a thumbs up. Every game should have a grapple hook. Chess should have a grapple hook. Experience over-the-top Hollywood moments without sacrificing the tactical depth of an extraction shooter. And get ready to ride the storm. That's a trademark I just made up, but you can have it, Exoborn. I'll send the invoice later. Check out my link in the pinned comment down below right now and wishlist Exoborn on Steam today. Also join their Discord via the official website to get exclusive in-game rewards. Thank you, Exoborn. All right, we back. Where was was I? Yes. Win streaks matter in another way, and after you've completed your lighthouse passage, you can choose to not reset your passage. And let's look at this additional win streak reward chart to go over why. Let's say you completed your lighthouse passage, aka you finally got 7 wins total. And let's say it wasn't flawless. You took a bunch of L's along the way, but let's say in this example that you got 4 wins in a row at some point during your run. That means you're officially in this category, i.e. the my longest weekly win streak is 4 category. And if you keep playing on your completed lighthouse passage without resetting it, we can see here that you now have a 50% chance of getting an Adept Trials weapon to drop after any win. So if your goal was to just get a bunch of Adept weapons, you're kind of made in the shade at this point. Just keep playing on your card without resetting it, and you have great odds to get Adept weapons to drop after any win. All right, quick detour, and let's talk about the flawless passage real quick. If you're on a lighthouse passage and you manage to go true flawless, aka 7 wins in a row with no loss, then Saint 14 automatically upgrades your passage to a flawless passage. But it's the same scenario we just went over, kind of. Taking a look at Bungie's loot chart again, you now have a 78.5% chance to get an enhancement prism on a win, 27.5% chance for an Ascendant shard on a win, a 75% chance to get an Adept weapon on a win, and so on and so forth. Hey Fallout, I want to try out new trials to get some Adept loot, but I'm really bad at PvP. Like, I use auto rifles unironically. That's fine. Why don't we take a look at the absolute easiest and most straightforward ways for you to get Adept weapon drops, even if you feel like you suck. At the moment, there's currently 2. Easy Adept method number 1, play in a fire team of 3. In the new trial system, Bungie wants to further reward players who play in full fire teams of 3. Basically, if you get 7 wins on a lighthouse passage, even if you took 100 L's along the way, as long as all 7 of those wins were done in a full fire team of 3 players, you have a 100% chance of getting an Adept weapon to drop when you reach the lighthouse. Slightly less easy Adept method number 2, get at least a 3 win streak. This is different from the loot chart I showed you earlier. That's the rewards you can get and the odds of you getting them from wins on a completed lighthouse passage without resetting it. But if you are resetting your card after each lighthouse trip, you should try to keep an eye on your weekly win streak. If you achieve a 3-game win streak 1 time on your way to the lighthouse, you are guaranteed another Adept weapon drop, different from the one you'd get from playing in a fire team of 3. TLDR, if you want Adept weapons, play trials in a fire team of 3 and try for at least a 3-game win streak, but don't beat yourself up if you don't get one. Going to the lighthouse on 7 wins that were all earned in a fire team of 3, and if you get at least 1 3-game win streak at all that weekend, 2 Adept weapons for you, guaranteed. And hell, even if you just get a 2-game win streak instead of a 3, that second Adept still has a 60% chance at dropping, which honestly, not bad. If you really feel like you're quite possibly the worst PvP player to ever exist, then at the very least you can try checking out the other passage option from Saint 14 called the Trials of Osiris passage. To put it bluntly, this is basically the Weenie Hut Jr. option for people who barely want to dip their toes into the shallow end of the pool. And to be honest, I didn't really F around with the Trials of Osiris passage at all over the weekend. I wanted to go straight to the Lighthouse passage. To repeat, the Trials passage is the perfect entry point if you've barely ever played D2 PvP in your life and you want an even less stressful environment. Or better yet, you want Trials weapons, but you don't care if they're Adept or not. Whether you win or lose on the regular Trials passage, you have a chance to earn a Trials weapon drop. It just won't be Adept. And you'll also get a bunch of Trials rep. Again, win or lose. For the average player, or the player who almost never touches PvP, this is kind of a win-win. And if you're really skittish about trying the new Trials experience, you might want to start there. All right, now that you hopefully have a better updated understanding of how the new Trials loot system works, I'll give my short, unfiltered opinion on the overall experience. In a nutshell, these changes are huge, and I give them 2 thumbs way up. Now, I'm sure some people won't agree with me, and I've heard some feedback along the lines of, going flawless in Trials used to mean something, or Trials is a joke now. And honestly, at this point in what the hell year are we in? Year 8? Good lord, year 8 of Destiny 2. I mean, really? Who gives a shit at this point? Seriously. I don't know about y'all, but I think that right now, getting players to actually step into the Trials playlist is a way more important goal than trying to preserve the legacy of Trials or however you want to put it. And look, if you want to show off the length and or girth of your E-Peen in the D2 PvP landscape, yeah, we got a place for that. It's called Comp, and there's a sick emblem you can get from hitting the new Ascendant 0 division. Do I often yearn for the days of old Trials? Sure, but D2 PvP has evolved to the point where high-end Comp is the sweat fest, and Trials is a unique PvP loot fest, and at this point, I'm more than okay with that. For a long time now, players have been completely ignoring Trials because playing in a fire team of 3 up until recently was essentially a punishment rather than an incentive, and you could play Trials for hours and hours with nothing to show for it. Both of those problems are maybe not perfectly addressed with the new Trials system. There's always going to be flaws, but things are miles better with this system than they were before. I will gladly hop into a fire team of 3 on a fresh Trials Friday because it's a guaranteed Adept from the Lighthouse chest, and you can get so much from Trials grinding now, even if you never hit a true flawless 7-0 streak. Will the Trials population numbers be absolutely banging every single weekend from here on out? Probably not. No, it'll likely depend on what loot is up for grabs that weekend and what else is going on in the world of gaming. For example, unless there's an absolute universe unraveling weapon on the table the weekend of the 28th, I'm probably going to spend my entire weekend turning Wild Rathalos into a pincushion with my bow in Monster Hunter Wilds, and that's fine. For the folks who enjoy D2 PvP, or at the very least want to get Adept weapons in Trials without having to schedule an appointment with a therapist afterwards, these changes are probably what you're looking for, and I recommend that when Iron Banner F's off, because Banner will be returning on Tuesday the 18th, that you try out new Trials for yourself and get you some slightly less stressful loot. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.